Okay. The one thing I'm showing on my screen, this is just kind of the Gear Up main website. I just wanted to point out that the templates that I sent out are actually here on this side column in case you lose where you save that email or you can't find it. I know that sometimes happens. You can always go to the Gear Up website and get those there. And that's kind of just an easy place to grab those. And those, you just click on them and they'll download, and that should work. I know some schools have tighter security settings on stuff like that than others, but hopefully that will work for everybody. But if you have any issues and you otherwise need access, just let me know and we'll get that worked out. Yeah. So now I'm going to switch over to, okay, is everybody looking at Excel?
Yeah.
Sheet. I can see my screen. Okay. So I'm actually going to start with the course list template because I think it's slightly more complicated than the other ones. There's a little more to it. When you first open it up, you're going to be on the Start Here tab, which is pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to pick your school from the drop-down, whatever your school is, and then minimum credits required is just whatever your school says. You know, if you're a student here, you have to take at least this many credits per year. You know, that's just what you enter there. So for some schools, it's 5 or 6 or whatever it is for your school. And that is just so once you send me all of the grades, I can look at what each student has taken and say, oh, well, you sent me grades, but the grades you sent the student only has 3 credits, but you said they had to have 6. And then if they didn't leave any point throughout the year, then, you know, we might be missing some grades. And that's what that's there for. It's just whatever your school's requirement is. The course list and then the grades, all of these are really similar to what we did last year. For those of you who were here last year, they're very similar. I think they're actually quite a bit more user-friendly. So hopefully that works out. Course number and course name, those are just whatever your school uses. Those are just, you type in course number and course name for your school, whatever you guys use in your system. Course type actually has a drop down, and these are specific classes that we're looking at for the Department of Education. They have specified we want to know about these particular classes. And so the reason that we ask this, you're like, well, couldn't you just look at the course name? But some of the course names are not clear to me as an outsider of, like, you know, advanced concepts of algebra. Okay, well, is that the same thing as like advanced algebra 1? Is that advanced algebra 2? Does it, you know, differ from school to school? Not super clear. So that's why I am asking you to go ahead and put this in. This is a new thing from last year, because last year I did try to go in and guess on some of these, and it was not the best idea. So most of your classes are actually going to be this last one, none of the above, because it's really only asking English, and then your science, like core sciences, and then your maths. So Spanish, JROTC, PE, economics, all of that is going to fall under none of the above. So if you're looking at this and you're going, they look like they're almost all none of these, that's okay. That's expected. Course level is another drop down, and that's however your school defines this. Is it most of them are going to be your general course, so it's like regular geometry class. If you're doing an honors geometry or advanced, you pick that one. You've also got college prep, AP, IB, dual enrollment, any special education classes, and ESL classes as well, and then remedial classes. If you have anything that's maybe a little more remedial than just kind of your general class, that's an option as well. And then let me go over to grading scale is another drop down. If you give students, an 85, you're going to put a number grade. If you give students a B, letter grade. That seems pretty clear. Letter grade is also your pass-fail. So if you have any classes that are pass-fail, you're going to choose the same option. If you have any courses that are evaluated differently, if you like in an unusual way, if it's below proficiency above, I don't like if you have an unusual grading scale for one of your classes, just let me know. And I can alter this template a little bit to accommodate that. But I think that 99.9% of all the classes should be under one of these. And then credits is just how many credits counted by your school. So I know a lot of schools do, like if it's a year-long class, it's 1, if it's a semester, it's 0.5, but if you're in a block scheduling, then that's totally different. Some classes might be 2, it's just whatever your school uses to calculate that. And so if you want to look, I've put in kind of a little bit of fake data here. If you want to know like an example of what this might look like once you filled it out. So just your numbering scale, it could be numbers, it could be letters, I think it could be a combination of both, whatever your school uses. Course name, so this could be, a full English 10, or it could be Mill-Sci, whatever your school system has. Course type, again, you're seeing lots of none of the above. So one thing I'll point out, if you've got other math, is a course type, which is literally like if it's not in the drop down, but it's a math and it's higher than Algebra 1, you can pick other than math. Because they literally do want us to report it that way. We have to show how many students took classes that were math and higher than Algebra 1 and not also listed in one of those others. So it seems a little weird, but it's all based on how we have to report things federally. So that's why that is that way. Again, most of your classes are going to be this general default, and these are probably all going to be the same. Almost all of your classes will either all be letter grades or all be number grades, however that works. And then once you do have all of this filled out, you can go back to this start here. First, check your course list. If you hit this button, it's going to show you put in 16 courses and you have 3 errors. So 16, that's kind of what I expect because I've got 18 lines and the first 2 are headers, so that's good. 3 errors, and they're going to show up in bright red. So you know exactly where the errors are. So if you look at this one, it's like, oh no, I forgot to type in the course number. I'll just go ahead and enter that. Course type, oh, that's blank. I need to put that in as well. And then here, it says general, which is similar to this option, but it's not this drop-down option, but it's not exactly the same. So if you're copying and pasting into the spreadsheet, which most of you will be doing, I totally recommend, you know, downloading something from your school information system and then copying and pasting it here. It will actually let you put things in here that are not in the drop-down, but they're going to, you know, get pointed out as being errors that you need to go in and fix. So it's just like, oh, I forgot to fix that after I copied and pasted. So I'm going to go in and choose one that's actually in the drop-down list. And then you can go back, check your course list. When it says 0 errors, then you're good to move on. So the next part is grades. And this one's a little bit simpler. Few less columns that you got to worry about. STI, first name and last name. Okay, that should be pretty self-explanatory. So just make sure that all of these are correct, especially the STI, because if you put in the wrong STI, there's a chance that it could get put into the student with that STI actually their record instead, and that's not good. And so that's the reason, we're asking for the STI and the name so that we can double check that. But do be careful if you're typing in any of this. But again, copy and paste is probably the way to go. Course number, this is a number that should be in this column, which it should match here. And then grades, again, it's whatever the final class grade is for that course. And if you had put on the previous page that this course number gave number grades, and you need a number in here, and it's only going to take up to 100. So I don't know if any of you guys actually have the possibility of having more than that for final grades. It only goes to 100, and then your letter grade options are actually right here. So you do A+ all the way to D-, F, P for pass, I for incomplete, NC for not complete, which I know some schools make a distinction between the I and the NC, and I think some don't. So whatever is actually in your school record system is what we want there. Again, if your school uses any other sort of system, then one of these, just let me know, and we'll work with that. But yeah, this will let you put in a B-, it'll let you put in a C+, P for pass, anything like that. And then when it's done, here's kind of example stuff of what this might look like. And then the same thing, once you've got all this in here, you can go back and there's a check your grades button. And you click that and say you put in 18 grades, and you have 3 errors. And again, it'll light those up in bright red. So you know exactly where those are. And so here you see, oh, I accidentally left this one blank. So you need to make sure I go fill that in. For all of these spreadsheets, every single column has to have something in it. If you look at this one that's red, course number 1711, well, if we go back and look at our course list, you'll notice we don't have that in there. So either that's a course we need to add a line in here with that course in the course list, or maybe we just mistyped this and it's actually 7010. And then again, for the grades, if you set it the letter grade class and you put in a 95, that's an error. So you either need to fix the course list and say, actually, this is a number grade class, or put this in as a letter. And then when you check it again, 0 errors, and you can move on. One of the things you will notice, again, here is here's a student, oh, we made a typo on the STI. It's not going to catch that. So be careful when you're putting in STIs, because that is how all of this gets put into Scribe, is based on that number. And that is all of the course list and grades stuff. Does anyone have questions on this particular template? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. Feel free to interrupt anytime as well, if you need to. And we'll move on to standardized tests. Again, it's going to start with this kind of welcome screen. You're just going to put in your school and then move on to the next page. STI, first name, last name, same, self-explanatory, basic stuff. Standardized test is going to give you a drop down. So we're looking at scores for the SOL. This is the PSAT 8-9. I know there's not a slash, but just pretend it's there. PSAT 10, which you actually probably do have a lot of scores for that for last year. The pre-ACT, SAT, ACT, and then ASVAB. If any of these you didn't have students take them, then obviously you're not going to put scores in. That's just some schools had some students take these, so that's why they're all there. But we're not expecting every student to have a score for every one of these. That's just they're all just there to have as an option. And then once you choose one of these, then it'll let you choose a test section. If you don't have one of these chosen, it doesn't know what sections to pull, so it won't let you choose that one first. You have to choose this one first. And then you can go and choose the test section. For the PSAT, pre-ACT, SAT, ACT, any of these, you have to put it in each section. So if you have a student that took the PSAT, I would fully expect there to be 3 different lines for each student, because we want their reading score, their math score, and their total score, and they have to be on separate lines. So the one that you don't have to do that with is obviously your SOLs, because they don't take all of them, they just take one. And it'll give you a listing of all the different options there for that as well. The date of the exam. So the official school year for last year is September 1st, 2017 to August 31st, 2018. Won't let you put in any test scores that are not within that range of dates. I mean, you can still go ahead and put them straight into Scribe if you have like this year's dates for tests that you want to put in. But right now we're really just focusing in on the 2017-2018 school year. So that's really all we want to look at right now, specifically for this spreadsheet. And so just put the dates in there, and then the results is whatever their score was on their official score report. And then once you have these in for a few students, it'll fill out. You'll have your SOL, PSATs. You may have 1 or 2 students that are ahead of the game and have already taken the SAT or what have you. Just whatever you have, we want to capture that. But again, the PSAT, we want to see those in 3s. And then once you've got all that entered, do the same thing. You go back and check it with the little check your standardized test button. 24 scores, 5 errors. Oh no. So we're just going to look at that and go, okay, world history 2. Oh, maybe we copied and pasted that because world history, it uses Roman numeral, so it's going to kind of throw it off. It does have to match these exactly, or it's going to be called an error, because when I go to kind of translate these into Scribe speak so that I can get it into Scribe, it needs to be exactly what these drop-down options are for that to work. So we fixed this one. And here, this is actually this school year. This isn't last school year, so we don't even need these on this spreadsheet. We'll put those in the next time we're putting in scores. And then here, PSAT 10. So I got a 10-15 on reading, but that's not even a possible score. So I'm just going to take that out until I can figure out what the actual score was, right? Because I'll need to look that up and figure out, if, what type of typo that was. But now that I fixed everything, I can go and check it again. Got no errors. Great. Save it. Make sure when you're saving things, the ones I sent out will say standardized test template. This one says example, obviously. Just change template to your school name so that I don't get 20 different files with standardized tests. And then have to open all 20 of them to figure out which one's which whenever I'm trying to find a particular one. So just make sure you save it with your school name in it, so it's really easy to find later, and send it to me. Again, in order to make sure that we're protecting your student data, you either need to save it with a password. So you can do that by, when you go to File, hit Protect, Encrypt with Password. And that'll let you save it with a password. And then you're just going to send me a separate email letting me know what that password is. Or you can always go and attach it to your school record in Scribe, and then just send me an email saying, hey, I attached standardized tests in Scribe. Can you take a look at it? And that's all for the standardized test stuff. Are we all still doing okay? Does anybody have questions?
No.
I know this is pretty fast. Okay, so the last template that you guys got sent, it says unexcused absences, and this one is the easiest one. So again, it starts off the same way with just your school name. But then here, STI, first name, last name. This is this is your kind of basic, easy peasy, cut and dry information that you use for everything. And then unexcused absences, you're just going to put a number in there. You only need to put students who have 10 or more unexcused absences. So basically, at the end, we want to know who had 10 or more unexcused absences during the 2017-2018 school year. But if you have a larger school, especially, that may be quite a few students, and you don't want to do it one at a time, you can just send me everything. That's fine as well. So even if they have fewer than 10, that's okay. Just as long as we know all the students who do have more than 10. So if you just want to put, the 10 students who had 10 or more unexcused absences, that's fine. If you want to put all of them, that's fine too. It's whatever's easiest for you, depending on how many students you have at your school, how well you know that information, whether you'd have to go digging through every single student's record to find it. That's whatever is easiest.
Amy, it's Erin. I wanted to let everybody know we had a school contact us, and they were concerned about us sharing the information with VDOE or other organizations, just concerned about the number of absences, and just to kind of reassure everybody, the data that we're compiling is only shared with the United States Department of Education, and it's shared in aggregate. So your school is not going to be called out for absences from us whatsoever. So just making sure everybody is put at ease about that.
Right. Yeah. So we want to know specific information for each student, specifically grades and standardized tests as well, because it's, we want to know also what's missing. So if we have it at the student level, then we can say, oh, we're missing grades for this student or that student. But grades, standardized tests, unexcused absences, all of this, when we report it out, it gets reported as a number of, we had this many students had 10 or more unexcused absences. And that's the only place we report, specifically absences. That's the only place we report that. We don't really use that in other informatics. But then once you put that information in, it may just be 2 students, it may be 25 students. You may put in all of your students, and then you're just going to check it. And if there's no problems, then you save it and send it to me. And somebody said that they put their SOL, they put an SOL in the test column, and then it wasn't giving them any sections. It might depend on, do you have something in your test section field here, or did you leave this blank? Because if you leave this blank, obviously it's going to ask you, it's going to come up an error because you need which section, because you don't just take an SOL, you take a specific subject. So if you send me a little bit more information about that, either in the chat box, you can send me an email about it, then we can work through any errors you might be getting and what they are. Again, for any of these, if it's showing up like, hey, this is an error, and you're looking at it and you're like, I don't think it is. I don't know what the problem is. Don't pull your hair out trying to figure it out. Just give me a call or shoot me an email, because it might be something really specific. So some of these are, dependent on if you accidentally change the formatting from a text to a number, then that could throw things off, but it's not a big deal. You could just call and I'll be like, oh, that's what the problem is. Then you're good to go. That's fine. You don't have to worry about it. So yeah, if you get an error, something shows up in red and you don't know why, just ask. Don't spend too much time fretting about it. Just just send me a question and we'll get it figured out. Yeah, and also, I mean, these are not perfect templates. I wrote them myself, so there's always the chance that there's a pretty good chance that there's an error in there somewhere on my part. So just let me know and we'll get it all the kinks ironed out. If there are any, hopefully there's not. But again, this is what happens when you write all these programs, is you got to test everything until you figure out if there's any problems. And then the last thing that was in that email that I was asking for, let me see if I can get my screen switched over. Okay, so, all right, this paragraph here. It says, lastly, one of our program objectives is see how many are on track to apply for college, which is a really specific phrase that we have to track. And then how that is defined is literally students who had they both had a 3.0 GPA or higher, and they had taken the SAT or ACT. And we're looking at the end of 11th grade. So what we're doing this year is we're looking at last year's 11th grade class. So when the Gear Up students were mostly 10th graders, we're looking at that year's 11th grade class, and we want to see how they did. And then next year, when we're looking at this year's information, we'll see, from the class before our Gear Up class to our Gear Up class, was there a difference in this particular measurement? So that's why we're asking for this. And then it's might be a little tricky because you have to grab, okay, who had a 3.0 or higher and who had the SAT or the ACT. So that's like the middle section in your Venn diagram. You want students who had both of those things going on. And that's, again, looking at your 11th graders in 2017, 2018. But I don't need names. You don't need to send me a whole list of students that qualify for this particular measurement. I just need a number. So I want to know that it'll be two numbers. One number is how many students fit this criteria. The other number is how many 11th graders did you have total. And all you have to do is shoot me an email and say, Amy, for the on-track measurement, 24 of our 102 11th graders fit that criteria. That's it. That's done. So no template, no spreadsheet for that, just two numbers, number of students total in your 11th grade class, and then the number that fit that criteria of having both a 3.0 and they took the SAT or ACT. We don't need to know their scores for those, because these are not our Gear Up students. These are the class before our Gear Up students. So we just need those two numbers. And that's everything we're looking at. And it sounds like a lot, and I know I just ran through this at a sprint, but I have, we've all been working really hard to try to make this as simple as it is possible. What this is going to look like is once you guys get these filled out and sent to me, I'm going to go through them and I'm going to send back questions. There's always questions. It's if you get back a massive email with questions, don't worry about it. It's not just you. There's always a lot of questions, and it's going to be like, I noticed that these three students didn't have any grades, but Scribe says that they were at your school the whole time. Do we need to exit them? Did they leave your school and we didn't fix that in Scribe, or do we need to find their grades? Those types of questions. Or these students didn't have any standardized test scores. Did they really not take any standardized tests, because that's possible? Or are we missing them? So basically just making sure we're not still missing anything. We've got all of our bases covered. And then once we get all that worked out, it's all going to go up into Scribe. I'm going to do that. You don't have to worry about importing anything into Scribe right now for this. You send it to me and I'll do that for you. And then that'll be that, and we'll be great. And that's that. So, do you have any other questions? If you have any questions that are specific to your school, again, you can always call or email. Email is actually probably the best way to get a hold of me, or even if you want to talk on the phone, email me to set up a time to talk on the phone, because I'm not always at my desk. And I can do this, this GoToMeeting. There's the option of I can share my screen, or I can hand you the control and you can show me what you're doing on your screen. So I can walk you specifically through any problems that you're having with your own set of data, or the same thing can be done through Skype. I'm incredibly willing to do what it takes to help you guys get this all done and get to go. So don't think, oh, I watched the webinar and I still have questions. What am I going to do? Just ask. I think I'm pretty approachable. So, yeah, don't, there's no dumb questions. There's no, crazy problems. I love questions, actually. It's not a well-kept secret that I love people who ask questions, because it means they're working on stuff instead of ignoring it and hoping the problems go away. So always feel free to ask questions. Does anyone have anything that's a more general question that might be beneficial for the whole group to hear?
No.
Okay. I hope that this was helpful. And again, if you have any questions about anything later, let me know. This was recorded, so I'm going to stop it and we'll get it posted somewhere so that I can send it out to everyone and you can rewatch anything if you want to see it again. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great Monday afternoon. Thank you for spending part of it with me.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you,
You're
Amy.
welcome.
Bye, everybody.